Okay guys, I think we're good to go. I just want to welcome you all to the Halfway Training Center for this morning for the 4x4 course we're going to do. We do the theory over here, then from here we're out off to the quarry and we do the practical. Practical, we're going to lift wheels up into the air, we're going to do all sorts. It's good, that's what it's all about. Just a little bit on the training in the beginning. This one here, this course here today, this is just this one-day course really showing you what all the features in your vehicles are all about. How they operate, your Diff Lock, your VSC, all these different things we'll go through it. Over and above today's one-day course, we also do the two-day course, which is an accredited course. There's a lot more in depth on the theory that we go through today, and then it also includes recovery, puncture repairs, the high lift jack, the kinetic strap, the tree trunk protector, all of that. That's a two-day course. We do charge for it. It's about 1,400 Rand, and there's written tests, there's all sorts. Then at the end we also get a letter of competency according to this unit standard 254135, and from that you can actually take that to your insurer. You might get a reduction in your premium, which at the end of the year might buy your case of beers. But really it's a good course that you'll enjoy.
Does the second course have the condition that you've already done the first course first, or can you come in as a complete novice for the two-day course?
No, you can come in as a novice on the two-day course if you haven't done this first. It's probably easier if you've done this first because this is more basic, and that there's a bit more intensive, especially when you come to the written test and all that sort of thing. But
and,
it's not.
And for example, the blokes to bring their wives along or to do the course, is there any conditions or anything?
No, we in fact welcome it, especially for a day like today. We welcome partners for a very good reason, that when you're out there in the bush and the vehicle starts leaning, we don't want the wives to start panicking or the partners start panicking, because then there's problems in the vehicle. They come today with experience at all, they lift the wheels up into the air, they feel that the vehicle's not going to fall over or anything. So no, that's a good question. We really do encourage them to come along.
And kids? Children?
Children too. Yeah, provided you've got a family of about 2 or 3. We actually run out of space like here in our lecture area. But no, we encourage everyone. Right, what we will show you at the end of this, we will give you contact details. For myself, I'm Gerald O'Brien. I train here in Scottsboro area. We will also give you the details for Ron Otto up in Fourways. He does all the training in Gauteng. And to give you the email address, so you simply contact us either for the one-day course like today or the two-day course. If you guys have Prados, you'll notice today there's no Prados, there's no 200 series. The reason being that those vehicles, there is just so much electronic equipment and things in those vehicles. We don't have time in a day like today to sit with the person in the vehicle and go through everything. So for the 200 series, the Prados, we're really happy. We take you on a one day during the week, one-on-one. We can sit in the vehicle with you, spend more time. All right, so
is your course vehicle manufacturer specific?
No, no.
Any 4x4 vehicle?
Any 4x4.
So if you've got a Suzuki Jimny, you can come on the course.
Yeah, and we have had Jimnys, we've had Fords, we've had Land Rovers, you name it, we've had it all. But obviously being with a Toyota dealer, the Toyota manufacturer, it's obviously more Toyota specific, but no, we cater for everything. And today really I know the Toyota better than any other vehicle, but they're all similar. When we get to the electronics, you might find different names. Ford might call something ESP, Electronic Stability Program. Toyota calls it VSC, Vehicle Stability Control. It's the identical thing. Okay. I'm going to go through the part-time 4x4 as well as the permanent four-wheel drive. Part-time 4x4, really the big difference is you can't drive four-wheel drive on the tar road. You can cause huge big damage. And we're going to show you why and what sort of damage you can do. The permanent four-wheel drive, you're in four-wheel drive all the time on the tar road, no damage occurring. So I'm going to go through both of those. Okay. Right, shall we get going? You need a bit of an imagination with some of these pictures of mine. They don't all work out so well. Right, that's a basic 4x4. You've got 4 wheels, 2 differentials. One in the rear, one in the front. Right, this is the front of the vehicle over there, up there. The first thing that we're concerned about a vehicle before we go through the whole drivetrain is the differential. How does a differential work? What does it do for us in the vehicle? If I go into the workshop and we find a two-wheel drive bucky, two-wheel drive has one axle, one diff on the back. And we go in and we jack one wheel up, so that wheel's up in the air. Now we climb in and we start it and we try to pull off. What happens? That wheel will spin. The same as in a two-wheel drive sedan, a car. The wheel that's in the air will spin. If you let that wheel down, you jack that wheel up, same thing, that wheel will spin. You park that one on a rock in the outdoors and that one's in the mud, the one that's in the mud spins. So this center portion here on the differential, always but always, sends the power to the wheel or the side with the least amount of resistance. One's in the air or in the mud, hence it spins. The other one is stationary. Right? That's the one thing it does. The next important thing that this does, that center portion too, it allows the speed to vary while we're driving between the left and the right wheels. Can you imagine now, we're driving along, we start turning a right-hand corner. Doesn't our inside wheel have to slow down, the outside wheel has to pick up speed? Otherwise we'd go in a straight line wherever we go. So that's the next important thing it does, allows the speed to vary between the left and the right wheels. Okay, as we said, part-time 4x4 or any 4x4, we have a minimum of 2 differentials. One in the front, one in the back. I want to just go through the part-time 4x4 first. There's also 2 that we're going to concentrate on. Some vehicles, the FJ Cruiser, the Land Cruiser station wagons, the Land Cruiser pickups, and some of the older 4x4s, they still have the gear lever on the floor for the transfer case. Some have got the switch, and they work quite differently. It's easier with the ones with the gear lever, the new ones with the switch. We've got to know what we're doing. We've got to be on top of our game. A typical transfer case would look something like that: 2H, 4H, neutral, 4 low. That's for a gear lever model. If you have that with a switch on the dashboard, you'd have 4H, and then you turn the switch, you'd have 4 low. There's no more. Oh, sorry. And 2H over here. Okay, so 2-wheel drive, 2H 2-wheel drive high ratio, 4H 4-wheel drive high ratio, 4L 4-wheel drive low ratio. And the way we've driven here today is in 2 high. Right, let's just get our drivetrain going. That over there is called the T case, transfer case. That is a 2-speed gearbox. High ratio and low ratio. All our 4x4s have that. Then over here we have our gearbox. That's our 5-speed auto, whatever, that's the vehicle's main gearbox. And then over here we have an engine. This one is a V8 4.5 litre twin turbo, does 200 k's an hour. Okay, but really what our drivetrain does now, we start up the engine develops power, send it through to the gearbox. The gearbox is linked up to the transfer case. The transfer case then sends power to the back axle or the back and the front as and when necessary. We're still in 2-wheel drive, 2H. We haven't gone to 4 high yet. So that's how we've driven here. Power's gone from there to the gearbox, to the transfer case, all the power to the back axle, and we've driven here like a 2-wheel drive bucky. Now we've driven down the tar road and we turned onto the dirt. And the vehicle starts shifting around a little bit. We just want more stability, more control of the vehicle. What do we do now? We go to 4 high. Going from 2-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive, 2H to 4H on the switch or in the car, very similar. The one with the gear lever, you simply move the gear lever to 4H. The one with the switch on the dashboard, you turn the switch and you look at the dashboard for a little green light. The vehicles with the gear lever also has a little green light to tell you now you're in 4-wheel drive. If you move the gear lever or you turn that switch and the light flashes, that's telling you you've energized the system. You've tried to engage it, but the gears haven't engaged yet. And that's why the light is still flashing. When the light stays on bold, then you know we're in 4-wheel drive proper. different types of different terminology. You'll often hear guys say, oh, you can go from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive while you're mobile. You can go from 2H to 4H while you're mobile. Strictly speaking, that's the wrong terminology. You should be doing it while you're mobile. You shouldn't do this while you're stationary. You won't do any harm. But can you imagine if you're driving along, you turn off the tar road, now you decide you want four-wheel drive, so you become stationary. Whether you've got an automatic or a manual doesn't matter. You turn the switch will move anytime you turn it, or you push that down. Even though you engage in there or turn in the switch, it doesn't necessarily mean to say the gears have engaged. You actually might still be in two-wheel drive. It's more likely with a vehicle with a gear lever that when you go clunk, it's going to be a positive engagement. But this with the switch, it's a 50-50.
Does the clutch have to be used when you're transferring from 2H to 4H?
No.
So you can go straight without even putting the clutch in?
Yeah. We would normally take our foot off the accelerator. As we do it, it's in an instant. Quicker than going from first to second. Foot off. And that's just to create a little bit of backlash in the gearbox, because this is all gears linking together. But there's no clutch involved. Just come back to the vehicle with a switch, 2H to 4H. You're stationary. You turn it to 4H. You pull off. You might not be in four-wheel drive yet, because the gears might go clunk inside the transfer case and they don't mesh. You'd rather do it while you're mobile, because as you're mobile, those gears will mesh within a second or two. And likewise with this. So you turn off the tar road, you're onto the gravel, vehicle starts shifting around, you want a bit more stability, a little bit more control, go to 4 high or turn the switch and you're in four-wheel drive. What have we done now by going to 4 high? Inside our transfer case, I'm just going to draw it over here, we've got a big gear. In 2H, that gear is driving the back axle, like we've driven here this morning. Now we go down to 4 high. Linkage comes in, and now we link up the front axle as well. So that's why we call it the transfer case. We're now transferring power to the front and the rear, because we've gone into 4 high. And by going to 4 high, what have we done now? We're restricting 50% of the available power to the front axle, the other 50% to the back axle. I don't want to say you've got both wheels in the front pulling and both wheels at the back pushing, because as you lose traction, maybe through a big pothole or something, you could go down to one-wheel drive. But at least you know you've got one wheel in the front pulling, one wheel at the back pushing, and hence the vehicle stabilizes. And that's how this is meant to operate. Going from 2H to 4H, we say up to about 100 kilometers per hour. But you need to know your vehicle. I believe the new Ford Rangers, you can't do it above 80. And even when you're in 4 high, you can't go above 80, otherwise it disengages. I know from the Toyota and the Land Cruisers and those sort of thing, once you engage, you can go up to whatever's on the speedo. But really, if you're on a gravel road, 80, 100 should be just about maximum anyway. But that's the big thing. Do that while you're mobile. Don't do it while you're stationary. And you'll feel that vehicle will stabilize. Just like our tar roads, the dirt roads are full of potholes and corrugations and everything. So when you get onto a dirt road, you hit a big pothole here. If you're in two-wheel drive now, let's say we're in 2 high, you hit a big pothole here, all the power goes there. So we're down to one-wheel drive. Then you hit a big pothole over here, then the power goes there, and hence our vehicle starts shifting around because we don't know which back wheel is driving the vehicle. Go down to 4 high, vehicle stabilizes nicely. Once you go to 4 high, it's not distance specific. If you found a dirt road from here to Cape Town, you can go to Cape Town and back on that dirt road, no problem. Just don't go onto the tar, and we'll come to that now. Okay, we're happy with this 2 high, 4 high, and watching the line. Guys, the big thing, especially the newer vehicles with a switch, is going to low range. From high to low, you have to stop there too. Okay. On the vehicles with a gear lever, you've got that neutral in between, which forces you to stop anyway, because if you go to neutral, there is no drive. So you have to stop, go down to 4 low. If you have an automatic, you've got to be in neutral, not park, you've got to be in neutral before that will move down. If you've got a manual, you've either got to be neutral or have your foot on the clutch, one of the two, or both if you like, before that moves down. Okay. We'll talk about this coming back, changing out now. We've only spoken about changing into four-wheel drive, into low ratio. Here it's important you stop. If you've got the switch on the dashboard, let's just go back here quickly. You're in two-wheel drive and you're driving along and you come to a big hill. You can stop and go from 2H to 4H by moving that gear lever, one movement. And there's a good chance you're going to get 4 low because you're moving the gear lever and it'll work. The same thing, you stop at that same hill with a vehicle with a switch on the dashboard and the switch will go from 2 high to 4 low straight away, but it does not tell you that the gears inside have changed. And in fact it won't go to 4 low. Switch on the dashboard, you've got to turn the switch probably while you're mobile, make sure the green light comes on, that's telling you in 4-wheel drive. Now you have to go stationary before this big hill, stop, into neutral if it's automatic, foot on the brake because you're neutral, your foot's got to be on the brake otherwise you might roll away. And the same on a manual, you've got to be in neutral, which means your other foot will probably be on the brake. Then you move the switch to 4 low. Then you watch the little green light, yellow light on the dashboard, orange light flashing. And when that stops flashing, only then are we in 4 low. And then you can go through the obstacle. A little bit more involved. And the problem comes to the guys that have owned this. Now they want to treat the switch like they'll gear lever, just stop and do it whenever they want. It doesn't always work. You got the gear lever, you got a big strong arm, you got the gear lever, and you can mesh the gears nicely. Switch on the dashboard, you've got a little switch with a bit of wire, go through a relay to an actuator. Actuator is just a tiny little motor on top of the transfer case that's got to do all of that. So if the conditions aren't 100% right, it won't engage. Okay. We're happy with this?
Yeah.
Now let's just go to the permanent 4-wheel drive. There's your permanent 4-wheel drive. The older Fortuners, you'd have H over there, neutral. Sorry, I'm just getting mixed up here. LL over there. And the other vehicles like the Prados, that sort of thing, on the switch, you'd have high and low. Exactly the same thing here. There's no 4 here because all these vehicles are now, we're talking permanent 4-wheel drive, so they're 4x4 all the time. So, and they're a little bit different to them. You see your part-time 4x4, you have 2 differentials. All your permanent 4-wheel drives have 3 differentials. You see over here, you've got 2 on the part-time, the permanent 4-wheel drive, they take it there and they put in a 3rd one. And what is the reason for that? We've said part-time 4x4 you can't drive 4-wheel drive on the tar, you're going to cause big damage. What happens when you start turning a corner? Doesn't your back axle want to travel a shorter distance than the front? You go into the shopping centre, your front wheel misses the curb, but your back hooks it. This is what's happening. There's your front axle with the wheels turned. There's your back axle. Your back axle is taking a shortcut, taking a shorter line. For that to happen, doesn't the back axle have to slow down? Otherwise you'd want to go in a straight line. Otherwise you're going to, there's a section in the book called Diff Wind up, a critical part of 4x4. When you're in 4 high or 4 low, doesn't matter, and you start turning corners in a 4-wheel drive, you actually wind up this drivetrain between the back and the front axle, because no track is in a perfectly straight line. They've all got corners in them. And as you're cornering, you're actually winding up this drivetrain because you're forcing the back one to travel a different speed to the front. It's the way it works, perfectly normal. If you're on the gravel and like later on today, you're turning corners in 4-wheel drive, 4 high, 4 low, you'll actually hear one of the wheels skidding in the back in the gravel. And that's the way it's meant to work. That wheel, by skidding, is releasing all this wind up. That's the way it's meant to happen. If you're on a 4x4 trail and you hit a bit of a boulder or a rock and the car bounces, as one wheel becomes airborne, it releases that wind up. That's the way it works. However, you get onto the tar road now and you come up to a stop street and you turn right. Isn't this going to happen? But like seriously, because you're turning sharp right. Traction between the tyre and the tarmac surface is very good. It's like nice and sticky. So that tyre doesn't just slip on the tarmac like it would in the gravel. So what happens, you drive, and this thing winds up more and more and more. If you know what you're doing, it'll feel like the handbrake's on. Just check, maybe it isn't on. If it is on, let it off. If it isn't on, and you feel like it's on, and it feels like it's on, you're actually getting all this wind up. So what happens on the tarmac, because that tire doesn't just slip in the tarmac, it'll wind up, and eventually, there goes your prop shaft, or your diff, or you make your prop shaft look something like a cook sister, or you smash your transfer case. You can cause huge big damage by driving in 4 high or 4 low on the tar. We have to make sure that we're back in 2-wheel drive. But now we've said the permanent 4-wheel drive all the time on the tar. They can't go back to 2-wheel drive because they don't have it. So what happens we've seen in our part-time 4x4, drivetrain goes from there to the gearbox, to the transfer case, back and front axle. In a permanent 4-wheel drive now, we've mentioned it's got 3 differentials. Front, we call that one the center diff, and it's sideways, you see, transverse. So the power will go from there to the gearbox, to the transfer case, into that differential. That diff will now send 50% of the power to the back, the other 50% to the front. But as we start cornering, just like this diff allows the speeds to vary between the left and the right wheel, that diff now allows the speeds to vary between the front and the rear. And that's what permanent 4-wheel driving is all about, that center diff. If we go find one of our permanent 4-wheel drives and we jack up one wheel, any wheel, so we jack up that wheel, climb in, start it, try pull off. Although you're in 4-wheel drive all the time, that 4x4 won't go anywhere, and you're only jacking up one wheel. Of course, the power will go from there, to that diff, to there, to there. See, that diff is working exactly the same as those. If we let that wheel down, we jack up that wheel or this wheel, the vehicle still won't go anywhere. Right, which is all very good because that allows us to drive 4-wheel drive on the tar. So when you're driving in a straight line on the tar, essentially you have traction on each wheel. When you start turning corners, it might be varying slightly. But otherwise, you do have improved road holding because you've got wheels on the front pulling. However, lifting one wheel off, when you're out off-roading, you get one wheel off the ground and there you come to a standstill. One wheel off the ground, you're part-time, and you will just carry on driving because you've got the front wheel pulling. This no. So how do they overcome that? If we look at the Fortuner, the little transfer case, the gear lever, it's got H, HL, neutral, LL. What does that L stand for and that L? That stands for lock. Right? What are we locking? That center diff. We lock that center diff. If you look at a Prado, it's just got high and low ratio on the switch. It will have another switch on the dash that looks something like that with a great big X over there. That X is the center diff lock switch. Same as that. On our Fortuner, it's just that you're doing it on the gear lever. The Prado, you do it on the 200 series, you're doing it on a switch. That you can do up to 50 kilometers per hour. You can put that switch on. Up to 50. Once it's engaged, you can increase speed. Once you want to disengage, come down to around about 50 and disengage it. But once you lock up that center diff, you are then equal to a part-time 4x4 in 4-wheel drive. Imagine you got that wheel up in the air. Now you lock that center diff, you will drive off the jack. Because by locking that center diff, you're now restricting 50-50.
So until you lock that thing, that car is exactly the same as my Corolla parked there.
No, because your Corolla will never ever have power on the front axle. Take my word for it.
Doesn't make sense.
This permanent 4-wheel drive always has power going to the front until such time that you lift the wheels up or whatever. Your Corolla, you will never have power going to the front.
Okay.
So your Corolla, the power's varying between the left and the right wheels. In a permanent 4-wheel drive, it can move around between all 4 wheels. So we get onto the dirt road, the same dirt road, but our diff lock's in the open position. And our permanent 4-wheel drive also starts moving around like that. Because if you hit a pothole here, you can see all the power can come down there. If you hit a pothole there, all the power can go there. So what do you do in the permanent four-wheel drive? Engage your center diff lock. Then, I like to say, only then are you in pucker 4x4 mode, because you've restricted it 50-50. That makes sense with the permanent. What we find with the guys with a permanent four-wheel drive, they will often see that as like the last resort, something special, magic switch. It's not. All it does is putting you to four-wheel drive. You should be using it as often as possible on the gravel. In the permanent four-wheel drive, if you're driving with your center diff lock on onto the tar road, you're also going to have all the wind up, and you're also going to cause big damage. Right. Also going to low range, they will also stop exactly like the part-time 4x4. Now we want to go from 4 high to 4 low. We've mentioned you stop and you drive four-wheel drive. And you're driving along on the dirt road, there's the tar road, and you're going to go home that way. So you're driving along, you could just, let's mention quickly, the wind-up that we're talking about is never between 4 low and 4 high. It's always between 4 high and 2 high, because that's where you've got the wind-up between the front and the back. You're trying to disengage the front, or you're trying to disengage the center diff. 4 low, 4 high, there's no wind-up. Alright, so in actual fact, we're probably driving along here in high ratio, or with the center diff lock on. Now we get, the tar road comes up there, what do? We turn our wheels, because that's the way we're going to go home, and now you stop. Maybe you're lucky, and you can move the gear lever, maybe. There's a good chance you can't. That gear lever just doesn't budge. So now you've got your bum up on the headrest and you're pushing your foot on the gear lever and it still doesn't move. Right? You've got the switch on the dashboard. If you go from 4 high back to 2 high and that light doesn't stop flashing, telling you you're still in four-wheel drive. What has happened? While you're driving here, I've drawn this like this for a good reason, to show you that it's not a perfectly straight road. Slightly curved here and there. Plus now you're stationary over there, you turned your wheels, and maybe with your wheels turned you've rolled the meter. Are you not winding up this drivetrain? But like quite badly so. Now you're stationary and you're trying to disengage that. And there's just too much tension in the gearbox, you can't. So what is the right thing to do? As we mentioned before, there's the tar road, you know you're coming up there while you're mobile. Go back to two-wheel drive. Otherwise, you stop there, there's a good chance you've got wind up. And it's not only the road, we're going to go through tyres just now. Tyres also causes massive wind up. Some guys that like to straighten the wheels and they reverse. That can release it, but don't reverse too far because then you wind it up in reverse. You can wind it up either direction. Rather just do it while you're mobile. And if you've got your permanent four-wheel drive, same thing. While you're driving along there, disengage that center diff. Otherwise, you can also sit wound up on the center diff. What happens with the new vehicles with a switch versus the older one with the gear lever? With the gear lever, when you push it back to two-wheel drive, you know you're in four-wheel drive. You know you've gone back to two-wheel drive. The problem is here. The guy will drive up in 4H, stop, put the vehicle into 2H, and drive off. Might still be in four-wheel drive. There's probably a good chance he is. And that won't disengage now because you're on the tar road. It can't release. There's too much traction between the tires and the tarmac. Maybe somewhere along the run you turn the other way or the other way and maybe it'll disengage before you smash your transfer case or your gearbox or something. If you have a switch on the dashboard, you've got to go from 4H back to 2H. Watch that green light. If it doesn't go out, that means you're still in four-wheel drive. Then you can't drive onto that tar road. That means you've got to reverse, or you'd rather do that while you're mobile. As we said earlier, you'd rather do it while you're mobile. And this is a common thing with the new vehicles with a switch, because that switch will move any time. But it doesn't necessarily change in the gearbox. Critical.
What happens if I'm driving on your curvy road and I forget that four-wheel drive's totally out of my brain and I turn and I'm driving along and suddenly I remember? Or the car, like you said, starts funny. How do I get out? How do I get out of that situation? Say there's a car behind me. You said reverse just now, but there's a car behind me. I can't just stop and reverse. How do I rescue myself?
You could stop.
Yeah.
If it's nice on the side of the road, you could put two wheels on the side of the road. while you're going. Slow down, put 2 wheels on the side, because by putting 2 wheels on the dirt, traction is reduced, so it will probably unwind. Otherwise you've got to stop on the side and reverse. But there's a good chance it won't do it while you're mobile.
This is a matter of interest. Let's assume worst case scenario is you've got wind up, you can't reverse, you can't go forward. Would jacking up the vehicle release the tension? If you jack up one side of the vehicle so that...
Yeah, you could jack up one wheel.
Yeah.
Very interesting scenario. A few years ago on a Sunday afternoon I had a phone call. This guy, in those days the tar road from the bottom of the Sani, tar road ended at the hotel, which is quite a distance. And he had come from Joburg, and he had come down the Sani Pass, gone through the border, got to the tar road, and he had tried to move his from HL back to H. He tried to unlock his center diff, which is a similar thing. Would not move. But he said he could smell oil. So he said, well, climb underneath, let's see where the oil comes from, have a look. He comes back and he says, no, it's just dust from the dirt road. Because he could smell oil, telling me that something's hot. And you know your gearbox oil and your diff oil has a very strong burning smell. So something was hot, the vapor was coming through the vent or the breather into his vehicle and he could smell it. So we got talking, where you come from, Joburg, which route did you do? Okay, all very nice. The mileage of the vehicle, he told me. I says, tires? He says, no, he put on 2 new tires for the trip. All proud of himself. He's 2 tires for the trip. I said, okay, take a walk around. I want to know the tire sizes. Read off the tire size. You'll see 265, 70, something. He goes, he comes back, says, right, you've got 2 different size tires on. This is your problem. Told him, go up, jack up one, any wheel you like. He jacked up one back wheel because it was the easiest. And he says, as the wheel became airborne, you could actually see this thing releasing, all this wind up. I said, right, go back, climb into your car, put it back into H, which he did, all went back. I said, right, let the vehicle down, drive off, go home, change all the lubricants. He came back, he says he jacked up all 4 wheels, just to make sure, but once you've jacked up one, you've released it. That was not necessary, but he wasn't taking any chances. Wheel sizes, we're going to go to tires now. It's critical when it comes to vehicles. We had a chappie a number of years ago. I usually mention the vehicle make, but I'm not going to this time. But nonetheless, we think this guy was a bit simple. And we came out after the talk like this, and we saw his vehicle parked there. And he probably thought, just this is magic. He goes downhill wherever he goes, and he's saving fuel and all sorts. But we offered to rally around. In those days, any vehicle, the wheels were all interchangeable. And we said, let's change wheels, get your vehicle standing nice and still, level. He said, no, always drive like this. It wasn't 4 kilometers, 3-4 kilometers in low range. He split his transfer case open. Wow, all the guts fell out. He sheared the U-bolts off of his little universal joints. He did big damage. And why? Those big wheels on the back. Are you not causing those bigger wheels to travel a slower distance than the front? Or you're not getting huge amounts of wind up? That those wheels can't just spin fast enough in the gravel to release it. Hence it did all the damage. It was not long ago in Howick, we had a guy with a Land Cruiser, and generally Toyotas have good gearboxes and they work well. And this chappie, he's sitting in the front row complaining bitterly about his Land Cruiser and the gear lever, and it's so chunky and he struggles with it, doesn't go in and out of, the Land Cruiser's got gear levers and he battles with that, get in and out. Anyway, we went through all of this. Now we're going to go up to the practical area, and I see his vehicle standing like that. Call him, say, come look at your vehicle. We go, we went through different size tires. Which is also telling us, because he took it to a tyre outlet, in that case it happened to be Tiger Wheel and Tyre in Pietermaritzburg, and put 2 tyres on. The chappies in the tyre outlet might not own 4x4s. Even if they do, they might not understand the drivetrain like we're explaining it to you now. So they gave him 2 new tyres and he was happy. But ever since then, since he got the tyres, he's battling in and out of 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, and he's condemning the poor Land Cruiser because the gearbox is chunky and doesn't work properly. Anyway, during the week, he went back, She pointed out to Tiger and Tyre, they gave him 4 new tyres, all the same size, end of problem. Now he's happy. Nice smooth gearbox. Tyres is your own problem. It's not the tyre outlet's problem, it's not the dealership or wherever you have your vehicle serviced. Tyres are your own problem, your vehicle. Rotating tyres are critical. And if you bring it to our workshop on a Monday morning or any day of the week, it doesn't matter, and you service it, we don't automatically rotate the tyres because we can get into trouble. Maybe you bring your car in for service on the Monday, and Saturday you went into tyre outlet and you did the alignment and balancing and they rotated the tyres for you, which is the right thing to do. Now you bring it to us and we change it all back again and we're in trouble. But if you put it on the job card, which you should at least every single service, minimum every service, put on the job card, rotate the tyres. And then something else with tyres, we don't have 4 tyres, we have 5. We've got a spare tyre. The manufacturers won't tell you, the tyre manufacturers, they won't give you an exact date of the tyres, but if you go and check your tyres, it'll have a date stamp, date of manufacture. You're in an accident and the assessors come out. One of the things they do is they check the date on those tyres. And if they are older than about 5 years, they might just throw your claim out. Rubber never ever stops curing. It starts getting harder, a little bit harder all the time. After 5 years, you can look at your spare wheel on the back or underneath, and it's still got all those little pillikies on there, like brand new. But so you're not going to throw that away because it's new. But inside, visually it looks new. Inside, that tire's busy de-beading. The rubber's breaking away from the canvas and the pliers and all sorts. Now you do get a puncture, you're on the tar road, 120, and that tire just disintegrates in an instant. Now you've got problems. So, when you're rotating your tires, tell them include the spare. It does mean somewhere along the line you've got to buy 5 tires. Maybe not all at the same time, but at least you're not going to throw a brand new spare away sometime. And by including your spare, you're actually extending the overall tire life a little bit because you've got a new one or a different one coming in all the time. If you want to do it yourself, go to the workshop and ask them for the pattern. Because I think there's a different pattern between a permanent forward drive and a part-time. So they can draw it out for you. So if you want to rotate the tyres, maybe if you go to the tyre outlets and have it done by yourself, maybe take that picture anyway. Because they might not, they might just go front to back or I don't know. Or you say put a spare, they say, okay, where would you like it? It's not where you would like it, it actually should be included in the pattern properly. Tyres are critical. Let's just take it a step further now with this winder. Are we happy with the drivetrain of our vehicle? We do have a rear diff lock. We're going to go through that still. I just want, while this wind up, it is a critical part, while it's fresh in our memory, we'll go through that. Okay, last time I was told I can't draw tyres. That's a rim. Okay, I still can't draw tyres.
That's even worse.
Okay, there's the tread. You look like a tyre.
Oh, Picasso.
Okay, that's the overall diameter. That's the part we're concerned about, because we saw the chappie with that the other vehicle. The problems he had. That's the overall diameter of the tyre. That's the diameter of the rim. That's the width of the tyre. And this is the profile. We have very high profile tyres. If you look from the edge of the tyre to the rim, it's quite high. If you look at a lot of the new the Range Rovers and that sort of thing, it almost looks like they're riding on the tar road with their rim because they have a very, very low profile. Yeah, that could be because they don't do much 4x4ing. But anyway, right, now we can go through the 2 different types of tyre sizes. You get the old, what we would almost call it the Imperial system, which is the American stuff, and it might look something like that: 31, 1050, 15, up to 21. The other type of tyre size, this is the new metric system. half metric anyway. 15 up to 21. If I look at this tyre size, we'll go through this. This is grand. I know exactly all about this tyre. If I look at this tyre, I don't know too much about it. But remember us, the diameter is the critical part. 31, that's inches. 10.5, that's inches. 15 up to 21, that's inches. 31, that's the diameter of that tyre, 31 inches. The width of this tyre is 10.5 inches wide, 10.5. There it is there. That's the width of the tyre. Then your rim size is anything from 15 up to 21 inches. So now you might have that, and you might say, okay, I'm going up to Mozambique or Botswana, I want a little bit more flotation in the soft sand, can I have a wider tyre? So the guy showed you this magic 31 1100 or 1150 or 1200. And you say, okay, that's cool. And you just check, obviously the rim size has got to be the same size. And you can buy that because you're staying with 31 inches. You can go wider, you can go narrower, as long as you stay 31 inches. You could even change the rim size on 2 of your wheels, as long as you stay with 31 inches. That's a nice way of tyre because you understand it straight away. The problem is here, if I look at that, I don't know the tyre size. You will often hear people talk about, I've got a 265, and the other one say, oh, I've got 285. And they discuss these tyres. It actually doesn't mean a hell of a lot. That 265 millimeters, 70 percentage back to inches. And I thought they were clever with their metric system. Didn't quite get it the whole way. 265, that's the width of that tyre, 265 millimeters. Right. The profile of this tyre is 70% of 265. Okay, so let's make it nice and simple here. 250 mil. That's 70% of that. Plus you've got another profile here. You've got one on the top of the bottom, one on the top of the tyre, one on the bottom of the tyre. So now we can work it out. Now we've got 250, so it's 250 times 2, alright? Then that answer, that equals 500. Then you go 500 divided by 25.4. Wow, 25.4. That's bringing it to inches. So that equals inches. Now you add on your rim size. Now we've got the overall diameter. You see the problem with this tyre. Now you might go into the tyre outlet and say, okay, I've got these 26575s, but I need more flotation. I'm going up to Botswana, I need more flotation. My back two tyres are quite worn, change them. So he goes in and he shows you these magic 28575s. And he says, there, answer to all your problems. It's actually the start of all your problems. 75% of 285 is far greater than 70% of 265. Hence you land up with a much greater diameter tyre. If you went to 285, you might have to go 285, 65 or 60. You've got to work it out. Otherwise you can't take that. If you change all 4, no problem, because then it's all equal. But if you're going to change 2, you have a problem. Okay, guys, that's why we say tyres are critical. We had a chap here after a course like this. He had bought 2 tyres, same size, but he did an interesting exercise. Went home, put a rim into a new tyre, one of his new ones. He rolled it against the garage wall, and he made a chalk mark between the tyre and the garage floor. And he rolled it out 1 revolution. Then he took his worn tyre. How much you wear off a tyre? 10 mil, 12 mil maximum. Pumped that up to 2 bar, the same as he pumped that one. Rolled it up, made a mark. The difference on that, on only 1 revolution, was 100 millimeters, 10 centimeters. That's massive. That's massive. And that's on same size tyres. Our vehicles are designed to handle that sort of thing. But could you imagine that worn tyre with a bigger diameter new tyre? That could land up at 300 millimeters, maybe more. So you on the dirt road now, the front axle wants to do 10 k's, but the back axle only wants to do 8.5. Something has to give or break or something somewhere. That's why tire sizes are critical. Okay, and as we mentioned, rotating, because that will keep all the wear pretty even. Okay. Then another thing, you get different types of tires. You get a HT, you get a AT, and you get an MT. That's a highway terrain, all-terrain, mud terrain. Highway terrain, we generally say that's a tire that you would get when you buy the vehicle. Maybe meant for 80% tar, 10, little bit of dirt road. Highway terrain, you'll see it has a very narrow tread pattern, doesn't have the big blocks, all that sort of thing. All-terrain, that should be 50-50, off-road, on-road. You'll find big blocks on the tread pattern, all that sort of thing, a lot more aggressive tread pattern. And then you get mud terrain, which is really an out-and-out off-road tyre. It's the best you're going to get for off-road. Doesn't like tar, but obviously once you've got a mud terrain, you do drive on the tar, but you've got to know you've got it there, you've got to slow down in the corners, you've got to slow right down in the wet, because that has big blocks. And your footprint on the tarmac is greatly reduced with that. Plus it's a very hard rubber. If you take that tyre, if you take one, all terrain, you'll pick it up, highway terrain, you'll pick it up, no problem. You take that, I won't say it'll be double the weight, but it'll be a lot heavier. If you take a mud terrain, that's almost double the weight of an all terrain. So it's also telling you the tyres are much thicker, so you're less puncture prone with that or that. This one here you can drive over bottles, you won't puncture your tyre. This you might, this you definitely will. But what we get into is, guys wait, they buy their vehicle, or you've got highway terrain, you wait until 2 tyres are fairly worn, you say, okay, then I'm going to put all terrain on. But you've got to be careful, because that all terrain might be a little bit bigger diameter than that. The size will stay the same, but you might get a little bit more tread, because you see how deep that tread is on an all terrain. So the size is the same, but the tread might be deeper. Once you're going to get wound up, and the same going from all terrain to mud terrain. Mud terrain, the tread is deep. I think that will be bigger than that overall diameter.
Gerald, I've just got a question. I think it's go back a little step. With the permanent four-wheel drive vehicles, what is the benefit of doing your tyre rotation? Because all wheels are driving all the time. It's not like you've got 2 in driving at a time and then the other 2 are not. If you're in 2-wheel, but in permanent four-wheel drive, aren't they all wearing the same? Besides any imbalancing problems.
No, because your front is steering. That
Right.
chews up tyre when you're in a car park, especially you're turning your tyre and you're not
Yeah.
rotating. Braking,
Yeah, point. Okay.
braking heavy on the front. So it's still critical to change. Like I say, if you're going to go from there to there, change all 4. If you're going to go from there to there, change all 4. If you're going to change, you might have 4 Yokohamas, that or that or that, and you're staying with the same type, but you're going to change brand. Then they say, change all 4. Right? At minimum all 4. Why? If you go and you buy one shoe, bought at Toughies, you take a size 9. But now you go and you buy hard-tech and suddenly you need a size 10. Because the 9 is too small. Tires can be the same, eh? Although they're the same, essentially the same size, you could have a bit more tread or whatever. You give it a bit more tread and people say, oh, sure, but I got 90,000 k's out of mine. Somebody else with a different make says, oh, I only got 60. Even though the same size. It could be tread depths. Other things too, the hardness of the rubber, but watch out for the overall diameter. And that's why we're generally going to change the brand, change them all. All terrain, mud terrain, I would say that all terrain is definitely the way to go.
And as far as those categories there are concerned, the tyre pressures, is that dependent on the vehicle or the manufacturer of the tyre or the type of the tyre? Because obviously you go into some and they just pump it up to 2 bar or whatever it must be. Is that determined by the different type of tyre?
No, I would say it's determined by the driver. Because you climbing in the vehicle, you drive and you want to be comfortable. If you go too hard, straight away you're going to be way too hard, you're going to bounce all over. If you go too soft, you're going to feel it, wobbles, and that there, very thick sidewalls. So you might drive with a softer pressure there to get a little bit more forgiving ride. Yeah, you probably go quite a bit harder. So we generally tell the guys, you go out and experiment. Normally for anywhere from about 1.8 to 2.2. These here, you can be 2.6 plus. What is very interesting, we'll take it a step further quickly with punches too. On one of these courses we had a girl that worked for one of the tyre manufacturers, and they said they are surprised that we're talking highway terrain, that those tyres actually hold the weight of the vehicle off of the tarmac. That these tyres are so thin. They are surprised that it keeps the weight of the vehicle off the tarmac surface. That's how thin they are. At least those are quite a bit thicker. And what she was talking, and this is good for us to know when we going off-roading, is tyres, punches. There's our tyre over there. Here's our tread. Something like that. Some of the tyres might have a little bit of a tread on the sidewall or whatever. But the latest taking from them is when you get a puncher and you go into the tyre outlet, they will generally put 2 fingers there, 2 fingers there. That area there is where they fix punches. Where do we get punches? Where they don't fix it. And she says it's a problem because they're coming so thin. I'm sure you guys remember the old plug, that where you push the thing in and out, you ream it out and you push the plug in. That is no longer an accepted norm. That's because these tyres are becoming so thin and there's so much movement in the sidewalls. All terrain, we still put plugs in. And up in Namibia, we put five plugs into one guy's tyre. Not ideal, had a bit of a bulge, but you know what, there's nothing worse than putting your spare on, because then you know you've got nothing. So we plug these with the plugs. But that, I don't think it would work. So, that's another thing when it comes to tyres. If you are going to be doing any off-roading, look at going minimum all-terrain, just to protect that. We've had it up on our trips in Botswana, that guys having punches and borrowing tyres. It's highway terrain. Even some of the manufacturers now, you buy a new Hilux or a new Ford or whatever, and it will have an all-terrain on it. That all-terrain is made for the tyre manufacturer. I don't believe you can buy it if you go to one of the tyre outlets. It's not the same as what we're talking about. It's somewhere, I think, between here and there. Rather you go out and you buy an all-terrain. What we tell the guys that in the dealership when they're buying a new vehicle, if they're going to do off-road, buy the vehicle and before you drive it off, let us trade that tyre in with the tyre outlet, because there's a value there. So we will get a good reduction on the price of that. And we put all terrains on and let them give those back in. On all 5. Okay, otherwise you've got to drive, you're stuck now for 60, 70, 80,000 Ks before you can go that way. And now you want to go do a trip, suddenly you've got to find all those thousands to add new tyres before you go. So we encourage it when you buy the vehicle.
You talked about getting a puncher on a trip and borrowing and swapping punches and that. What happens now if, because now you're going to have a different one size wheel different if you can't borrow the same size.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So what do you do then?
That's a good point. That's a good point. You're out on a trip up to Botswana, whatever. Now you get some punches. So you put your spare on. That's the same size. So everything's happy. You've got 4 tyres the same size. You get another puncher, which is not uncommon. So now you've got to borrow a wheel. Now you borrow a wheel from somebody else. It's a different size. Where do you put that tyre? Okay, so now we sit in one wheel. You can decide. If you get the puncher there, you can replace it there. You can put the other one there, whether it's bigger or smaller. Because that diff can accommodate a speed difference between left and right. However, if you envisage, we haven't been through the Diff Lock yet, but if you think you might be using the Diff Lock somewhere along the line, then you've got to put it on the front. Because once you put that Diff Lock on, these 2 wheels have to travel same speed to each other simultaneously. So you couldn't put a smaller one on. So if you don't need the diff lock, you can put a small wheel on anyway. If you've got one and you are going to be using four-wheel drive in the diff lock, put it on the front. Where do you put it if you get two tires that are bigger, or two that are smaller? Right? Same thing. You put them there. Imagine what grows in these trees. Okay, if you land up with two bigger or two smaller wheels, you put them on the same side to each other. You obviously couldn't use the diff lock here, but if you put them on the same side, you can carry on using four-wheel drive because you're not going to get wound up. That diff can accommodate the speed difference between the big one and the small one, and that diff can accommodate the speed there. It means you can carry on using four-wheel drive. If you put two big ones on the front or two big ones on the back, it means you can't use four-wheel drive because you're going to do the same as that guy did with his vehicle. Just interesting if ever it happens, or if somebody else has got punches, that you can give them advice now that you know that if you land up with one wheel that's a bit bigger, say after a puncture, and you want to put it on the back because it becomes a slip changing back to front, then you need two jacks and all sorts. What you could try doing, I suppose, is deflate that tire slightly to try and get it a similar diameter to that. Then you could carry on using your diff lock. And I think, we didn't mention it. You go up to Botswana. Now you've got a load on the back. Your vehicle's fully laden on the back with a fridge and all your camping goodies and that. Now you stop to deflate your tires for the soft sand. Do you let the front down less or more than the front? You let the front down more than the back because the back you got a load? Or do you keep it the same? Or do you let the back down lower than the front? I would think, and what I do and what I recommend to everyone when I do it, is you all go the same pressure. Because by having different tire pressures, aren't we altering the profile? The profile? So I would say, guys, all go same pressure. Doesn't matter the load, doesn't matter if you tow in, doesn't matter what the tire looks like from the outside, go the same pressure. Something we're thinking about. Tires are critical. We've had it on the dealership where the chaps that come back and doesn't go to two-wheel drive anymore and all sorts. And the first thing we do is go and look at the tire sizes. That's a critical part of four-wheeling. Are we happy with tires? On your Corolla, you can put tire wherever you like.
I mean, you can.
Okay. So that is the drivetrain that we've been through. Part-time 4x4 versus the full-time, you've seen it, the differential, that sort of thing. Now we want to just take it a little step further, because some of our vehicles have traction control nowadays, which is an excellent feature on the vehicles. We want to go through the diff lock. Some vehicles have multi-terrain select, which makes it quite difficult for those guys to get stuck. And we have all the other electronics. So we want to go through that quickly. Okay. This is the wider tire on the front. Right, so top of the list, we have ABS. Then we have TRC or A-Track. Then we have VSC. Then we have EBD. Then we have BA, TSC, MTS. You have Diff Lock. Then you have that's enough, huh?
OMG.
Huh?
OMG.
Yeah, there's also A and C. Right. You know, nowadays you own a vehicle and then they bring out a facelift a couple of months later and it looks identical. But it's not necessary because they do all these changes inside the vehicle that all the vehicles look the same. You can have two Hiluxes or two Fords sitting there. They can actually be big differences in there. We actually battle to keep up with all these changes all the time. But the top of the list, ABS, all our vehicles have got that nowadays. That's the anti-lock brake system. That prevents our wheels from skidding during braking, because skidding wheels we cannot steer. Once a wheel skids, it goes where it wants to, you can't steer it. So that will lock and release our brakes between 6 and 8 times per second. That locks and releases those brakes like that. And then a lot of this will work off of the ABS system. Just a little peace of mind on the ABS system. We have had it where somebody been driving down the N2 highway and the ABS light comes on and they panic now because of brake failure. ABS is an electronic system that does that to the brake shoes, locks and releases. Your main braking system is a hydraulic system from the brake pedal that pushes the hydraulics to the brake. So if your ABS comes on, you are not going to have brake failure. It just means that that little system there might not work in the case of an emergency, that you could get into a skid. It's an orange light, ABS, which is telling you it's not critical. Red lights on the dashboard are critical, orange lights aren't. Okay, so that's the orange light. It will also come on later on when we put the Diff Lock on and that sort of thing. Then we have traction control that we're talking about. We know our normal differential sends the power to the wheel or the side with the least amount of resistance. So in a normal type of vehicle without traction control, if you lifted that wheel and that wheel up into the air, that's where we would get stuck. What traction control does nowadays, each wheel has a sensor. Traction control only works that way. Doesn't work this way and it doesn't work that way. What traction control does, you get two wheels up into the air. Traction control via one of these sensors or the sensors picks up that wheel's spinning. So what does it do? Jams the brakes on. And in the same instant that wheel is spinning, so it'll jam the brakes on. So by jamming the brakes on there and there, where does the power go? It goes to the other side. And that's not spinning because it's got traction. And hence you pull off. It doesn't just jam on the brakes and hold it until eventually you get going. It locks and releases really, really quickly. So the power's doing that from one wheel to the other. If you stand in and you're watching a vehicle come over and its traction control is working, you don't always know which wheel actually has the power because it's sending backwards and forwards so quickly. But that's what traction control is all about. You battle to get stuck because it's moving the power. Wherever you start spinning, it quickly sends the power to the other wheel and hence you keep going. We will come to traction control versus the Diff Lock later. Sometimes the Diff Lock works better than the traction control. A-track, active traction control. I haven't seen how that works, but apparently what that does, depending on the terrain that you're in, whether you're in soft sand or rock or mud or whatever, when it sends the power to the other wheel, it picks up what sort of terrain you're in so that it can vary the amount of power going to the opposite wheel. Hence even give you less chance of getting stuck. And in fact we saw it with the FJ when we got stuck up in Botswana with a great big trailer behind us. We tried driving it normally with the traction control on, tried changing the gears, moving the gears around, couldn't get anything. Eventually we put a different system on called the crawl. And crawl moves this around very quickly together with A-track. And we rode about 30 meters with this trailer, just pulled off by itself and drove out. People couldn't believe it, this is soft sand. I couldn't drive it out there, but the vehicle, leaving it up to its own, drove out no problem. Tractor control is really amazing. And the FJs were the first to come out with this 8-track. It could have been working, but it wasn't allowed too much slip in that sand. Okay, we don't normally select or deselect that. It works there. Alright, it's there all the time. Then we get VSC. That's a Toyota. It's called Vehicle Stability Control. On the Fords, it's ESP, Electronic Stability Program. But it's all made by Bosch and it's all the same thing. What VSC or ESP does for us, it picks up lateral slip. Lateral slip is sideways. So if you're coming into a corner too quickly, that's what starts happening. And then maybe you do a whole donut or whatever. Or you could get into a front wheel slide and go farming into the bush. So what VSC does, it really picks up what's happening. VSC is able to brake on any wheel it wants to. It could only brake on one if it wants to, or two, or three, or four. It's also linked up to your engine management system, where something like that, it will decelerate you. We know we've got the rally drivers and Formula 1 and that. If you're busy losing it, you've got to floor it and counter steer and all sorts. VSC will take it one step better. It will shut you down and bring you back into line. Right, it's not going to accelerate you because you're already going too fast, that's why you're losing it. So that's what the VSC does. It's a safety feature. So it's always on. So it's the only feature on your vehicle that when you put it off, the light comes on. Right, when you put it off, the orange light comes on. And why would you have an on-off switch? If you're in sand, we know if we're in sand, don't we know the vehicle's going to be doing this? Your vehicle doesn't know it's in sand, it just knows it's got to save you. So you're trying your level best to keep momentum going so you don't bog down because of the sand, and this thing is busy shutting you down. Up in the sand dunes in Namibia, you've got to be wide awake. Every time you turn off or switch on, this thing goes on again. So you've got to keep remembering, turn it off. Otherwise you get to the bottom of the dune and you floor it and you die, and you've got to try again. But it's very good. Keep you in control. We had a chappie, just to give you an idea, in Botswana. He had a Jeep and he had a trailer. And just the other side of Savuti, extremely soft sand. And most of the guys got through and he was struggling. So we go back, we take our trailer off, we go back, we tow him out, get him on the top again, he drives a meter or two and he's down again. And eventually on the radio, and we called the one chap in a Hilux, who wasn't towing, he says, come take this trailer, help the guy. The Hilux come take the trailer and off he goes. That night we were sitting around the bra and this guy, he's sitting with his headlight and his owner's manual. He found out he had VSC. So his VSC, every time he's trying to pull off with the trailer, that was shutting him down. If we had a new Hilux there, we would have sold it to him there and then because he was mad with his Jeep. Because he was tired, it was embarrassing. But thereafter, he was fine. Once he found out that he had VSC, it was good, he was happy. Okay, so that's VSC. EBD, electronic brake distribution, we don't select that or deselect it. I think it just works quite well because our vehicles handle very well. To walk up to a vehicle and say, okay, yours has got EBD and yours hasn't, don't know how you could tell. Because there's no buttons, there's nothing. What it does, if you say you're taking a left-hand bend here, so you're cornering this way, the vehicle starts leaning. So aren't you reducing the weight on the inside wheels and increasing the weight on the outside wheels and the centrifugal forces, all that sort of thing. So what EB would do is reduce the brake pressure on these brakes and it would send greater brake pressure to the outside wheels for optimum braking on the outside. I think if you were towing, you didn't get the balance quite right on your trailer and your front wheels are up in the air or the car's sitting like that, it would reduce the brake forces there, increase it at the back. So that's what EBD does, and it just works for us. BA, brake assist. Our vehicle has sensors for rapid deceleration. When does rapid deceleration take place? In an emergency, when you're braking hard. There's a pile up in front of you or truck, jackknives or something like that, so you jam on brakes. But you might be looking for an escape route and other things going on, and you might not be braking physically as hard as you possibly can in that vehicle. Your vehicle might be capable of having additional brake pressure to the brakes. It does that for you. It's funny enough, we were just talking about it at work the other day. This one chappie, and he was in the Fortuner, and he came around by Edwin Swales, and the truck had jackknifed just in front of him. And he says he honestly thought he was going to go under the truck, and he was braking hard, and suddenly, like a hand from up there came down, and he just felt this thing slow down so much more, and he was able to take evasive action. But that was the BA clicking in. Okay. TSC, this is a fairly new feature, trailer sway control. You know, at certain speeds on your trailer, often with the downhill or on the level, your trailer starts swaying, and you battle to get rid of that. So through I think it would probably play off of the VSC system, it's able to brake this vehicle to try and keep it into line. I think if that comes in, you must stop. That's telling you maybe your tire's going down, maybe you've got a puncture, or a load is shifted or something, but the trailer shouldn't sway. If they're nicely balanced and everything's right and the tires are good, the trailer shouldn't sway. So that will save you, but if it keeps it up, climb out, have a look. Okay. It's the important one that the vehicles are coming out with, our new Prados, MTS, Multi-Terrain Select. What does Multi-Terrain Select have? That has a couple of different features. It has mud, it has sand, it has rocks, or loose rock. No, moguls. Moguls, for our terminology, is rough terrain. I think in the dictionary it's lumps in the snow where they go off pist and they ski between the moguls. But really, once you go off-road in the Prado and you come to a certain type of terrain, maybe it's soft sand or you come to a big mud hole or something like that, what do? You go into your multi-terrain select and you choose mud or sand or rocks or whatever you want. And that, according to that program, or whichever one you choose, there's programs in your vehicle that will only allow you to drive according to those conditions. In the Prado, only the VX Prado, when you go to low range, it switches off your traction control, which traction control is a major feature of the vehicle. But because it switches it off, you've now got a problem because you don't have traction control. So what do? You engage multi-terrain select, and as you engage one of those, it reactivates the traction control. And the way this was came about is the Japanese have got test drivers all over the world, and they've recorded their foot movements on between the brake and the accelerator in all these different terrain types. And from that, they've been able to draw up a program and put that into the vehicle. So once you choose mud you might accelerate a lot quicker than sand, because sand you're going to dig yourself in. So if you choose mud, you can drive the way the Japanese test driver did in mud, in sand or rocks. So once you choose one of those, you're about as good as that old Japanese test driver. But you don't tell anyone, because at least you get through the mud or you get through the sand or whatever. Okay, so that's multi-terrain select. We spoke about Diff Lock. Diff Lock, excellent feature. What does it do? It locks up our back axle. Now, because we've seen, if you get stuck, one wheel goes in the mud, that wheel spins. So what the Diff Lock does, it locks it up. Now, either both wheels drive off, or they're both stationary. Right, but you can't spin one without the other. The Diff Lock is where it's so good, it's a mechanical engagement. Gears in the diff. So that Diff Lock will work from 0 speed, 0 RPM. As you start touching that accelerator, that Diff Lock is working for you. And that's great, especially if in a big donga or something like that, where you don't want to go too quickly. You want control, you want to go slowly. Diff Lock works well. Traction control. The problem with traction control, it takes RPM to work, revs. Roughly 1,100 RPM. So you can imagine now you're going into a big donga and you stop, you go stationary. Now you've got to pull off again and you're relying on traction control. So you've got to bring those revs up slowly, bring the revs up, and eventually you feel the car wanting to go, and then suddenly it does. 1100 RPM in a big donga, that's almost like launch control. That car's going to go. So it does. It lurches forward. So what do? You take your foot off the accelerator and your traction control dials again. Next time, okay, now you're more aware of it, what's going to happen, so you do it again. With Diff Lock, it's probably better there, a lot more manageable, because you can pull off nice and slowly and off you go. So sometimes your Diff Lock is better than that. If you go into a big donga and you try to keep mobile all the time, then that might work quite well. But if you go too slowly or you stop and traction control switches off, then you rather put your Diff Lock on. Diff Lock, that one, Diff Lock, you can engage up to about 30 kilometers per hour. Only works in low range, which is good, because that's when you're in the dwang or about to get into it. And as you're driving along, you just put the button on. It's the same as 4x4. You rather do it while you're mobile. You can imagine driving in a straight line. So these two wheels are traveling the same speed to each other nicely. Now you put the Diff Lock on and clunk, there they go. If you're stationary, they will never engage until such time that you pull off and then they have the opportunity. So you rather do it while you're mobile. You go through the donga or whatever, while you're mobile, put it off, and it should engage fairly quickly. If you go through and you go stationary and you put it off, if it doesn't disengage, you'll wait there forever. And that's a red light, quite critical, so you don't really want to drive along with it. Okay, so up to about 30 k's an hour, which is quite fast. If you're coming up to a big donga at 30 k's an hour, that's fast. Okay. DAC, that's a good feature. You get DAC and you get crawl. Crawl is just an extension of the DAC. That's downhill assist control. What downhill assist control does, it was designed for the automatics. Automatics, when you're going downhill and you leave it in drive or you even put it into first gear or whatever on the gear lever, has a very high gear ratio, and an automatic will tend to fly down a hill. And then you've got to rely on the brakes, and then you've got a good chance of skidding and all sorts. So what they've done, they've developed this electronic braking. You put that on, and that will hold you down to about 8 kilometers per hour. You put the button on, take your foot off the brakes, take your foot off the accelerator, and let that do the braking for you. You wouldn't use it down Sani Pass. Everyone behind you hooting and trying to get past you because it'll be too slow. But some obstacles, like on a trail or whatever, that works very well. And it moves the brakes around all the time, so you don't get into a skid. That works really well. The other thing that when you brake in, you put your foot on the brake. Doesn't your car dip down on the suspension because the front brakes? When that is in action, your car maintains perfect stability, which means you maintain your ground clearance in the front over rough terrain. Whereas the other one, every time you jam on the brake, that's when you hit the rock and that sort of thing. That works well if you use it. If you so much as touch a brake or touch the accelerator, you override it. So your feet have to be off. And it works forwards or backwards. And nowadays, the modern vehicles, it's even in the manual. It comes out. Before it was only the auto, now it's the manual. The crawl is an extension of that. The crawl doesn't have one speed, it has 5 speeds. So you can choose while you're driving. Ranging from about 3 k's an hour to 8 k's an hour. You can choose the speed that you want. A little bit faster, a little bit slower while you're going. Crawl will also drive you. So if you've got a hill, you could drive up there. You take your feet off and let it drive for you. Then you can adjust the speed again while you're going. Works really well. I don't think it's a feature that you're going to use too often, because generally you just drive yourself. But that time with the trailer in the sand, that's the only thing that got us out. Yeah, because it's moving the power around between the wheels, and the combination of the 8-track, it actually worked very well. So that's our DAC and our crawl. Then the newer vehicles, HAC, that's hill assist control. There's no button for that, it just works. Now you come in up a hill. It was also developed for the automatic. You come up there, but now it's in the manual too. Started off in the auto. You're coming up the hill, and now you stop. There's a bird. You're doing a bit of bird watching or whatever, and now it's time to go. Let's just say you're in an automatic. So you're stationary. What has happened? You've taken your foot from the accelerator onto the brake. Right? That's holding us. Now we've got to pull off. How do you pull off? You take your foot off the brake, you put it on the accelerator. But maybe a bit slow. Or suddenly the bird takes off or whatever and you start watching again and you forget. So what would happen? Now your foot's off the brake, the car will start rolling backwards. So HAC will jam on the brakes for you and it holds it. A couple of seconds. Then it releases to give you a bit of a wake-up call. Because if your foot is not on the accelerator within a few seconds, it means maybe you've been sidetracked. You've forgotten what you're doing. So keep roll back and hold it again. And it does that 3 times for you, giving you time to remember, put your foot on the accelerator. After the 3rd time, that'll often just shut down and then you fly backwards. But by that time you've had like 9 seconds to get your foot onto the accelerator. So you don't select it, you don't deselect it. Where that's good, some guys are going home in the afternoon after work, you turn off the road and your driveway is right there on a slope. Now you're waiting for your electric gates to open. And when it's open, you're tired, long afternoon, you're in a hurry, so you're a bit slow in putting your foot on the accelerator. That will stop you rolling back into the traffic. That's one of the things. For us, it'll help us also on the hills. Okay. Oh, we're happy with all of this. You've got to go out, you've got to try it, you've got to use it. Certain things, EBD, BA, TSC, HAC, HAC you could go out and test. Some of them you can't. You just hope that they're there and that they work nicely. It's just one more thing I want to go through now. And that's our gearbox and our braking. And this is applicable to cars, 4x4s, motorcycles, anything. Our primary source of braking on any vehicle is not the brake pedal, it's a gearbox. The gearbox is the primary source of braking. And let's just go through it. This is a thumb suck rule. If you're climbing, generally 4 low. If you're on the level, normally 4 high is good enough. However, you could be doing dongas and that sort of thing on the level, then you might go down to 4 low. And then, if you're going down a hill, 4 low. Now, there's your 3-litre automatic. Right? And you put it into low ratio and you move it all the way down to 1st gear. And you drive off. This is nice and steep. And you don't touch the brakes. And there you go, against compression in your 3-litre automatic. If you were in a 3-litre manual, if you wanted to try and keep up with that auto in 1st gear, your manual you would probably have to put into about 3rd. It's so vastly different to the gear ratio between a manual and the automatic. So that's why, because of that high gear ratio, all that, the DAC and a lot of those features were brought into the automatic to accommodate for that high gear ratio. And it's like that forwards or backwards. When we're doing reversing, we tell the guys with the automatics we should teach you to overtake in reverse first, because when you go down there you fly, but you can put your DAC on. Over a period of time, and it's in Lesotho, which is the mountain kingdom. Why do they call it the mountain kingdom? Because of all the mountains. What happens in mountains? Big uphills, big downhills. And we've come close to having accidents there, and it's always been in the automatics. And what happens? You drive in and you've got to wait because you're on a trip, so the vehicle's quite heavily laden, and off the mountain pass, you leave it in drive and you brake, and eventually you have total brake failure. As good as our vehicles are nowadays, there's nothing to tell us when our brake fluid gets hot, when it boils. When the brake fluid boils, we have total brake failure. You put your foot on the floorboard or the brake pedal, it just hits the floorboard. There's no warning that your brakes are getting hot. So we've got to drive accordingly. So what do we tell the guys when we drive in these off-road conditions? Drive your automatic like the manual. And I often use Van Riemann Pass as something that we can identify with, because we all know Van Riemann Pass. Coming into KZN, you go over the top, it goes down to 80 for quite a while. Isn't it normal on the automatic you would leave it in drive and you just brake down to, you brake to hold it to 80? because that's what the speed limit is. But in a manual, you put your foot on the clutch and you go from 5th to 4th, probably to 3rd, to hold you back to 80. That's good for the manual, not good for the automatic. We should be using our gear lever. Because those brakes, guys come down from the Transvaal in the holiday season with their caravans and their boats and their families and all their luggage. Those vehicles are so heavy. They are braking excessively for that, get it down there, keep it down to 80. What we do is your automatic gearbox might look something like this. That's 3, 2, L. And over here, you have an S mode. So if you're coming down from Renant Pass, what should you do in a manual, in an automatic? You should move it from drive. You can move the gear lever down to 4th. You can move it down to 3rd. You can try and move it to 2nd. The gear lever might move, but the gearbox won't, because you're going too fast for 2nd gear. So what we're saying is, and this is a great fear of the automatic drivers, is that you smash the gearbox, because you don't know what speed you can go to 2nd. You know, in a manual, at 80 k's an hour you won't put into 2nd, because you just know your gearbox. In an automatic it's a bit different, but you cannot damage it. You might even be able to put it into 1st gear. They put L. L is actually 1st gear. You might even be able to move it all the way down there, but it won't change there. It might change to 3rd. Then if 3rd holds you at 85 k's an hour, then you're only braking for that 5, not for the full 80. If you have S mode, a lot of guys call that sport mode. It's actually sequential select. You can tap it across to S mode, then you just tap the gear lever. You don't have to guide it through all the channels. And on your dashboard it will give you the number of the gear that you're in, so you just tap it down, 5, 4, 3, 2, and you just keep tapping. When the car stops slowing down, then you know you've reached that speed for that gear. And then you can start braking. But that's how we should be driving it automatic, driving it like a manual. Then you have the best of both worlds. When you want to, you've got manual. When you want to drive it automatically, then you use auto. But at the same time, we've got to use it properly when we can. Okay, and that's what happened in Lesotho. It was always the automatics, those mountain passes. And eventually, guys had it where they just hit the floorboard. And then luckily, they're near the bottom of the corner, and they were always able to take the corner before they went over the edge and that sort of thing. Pretty cool. Guys, otherwise that's about as far as we're going to take it for today. I think from here we're going to go up to our quarry and we'll go do the practical, and from there we will do everything according to what we've got here. We will use everything. I think one last thing, I just want to give it for you guys. I've got my contact details here down in Scottsboro, and I've got Ryan Otter from Joburg. I'm just going to give you time if anyone wants to make a note of it. Here are the contact details to get hold of myself or Ryan. Ryan is up in Gauteng. He's stationed at Halfway Fourways. He also does the 1-day course. He does the 2-day course. Hold on a second. There, I'll just hold it. Zoom in. Otherwise, guys, we hope you've enjoyed this with us. Picked up a couple of tips from us, and you're able to go out and try it out in your vehicle and have a better drive, a safer drive when you are out there 4x4. Okay.
Thanks
Thanks for watching.